Welcome everybody to the October 19th combined Cascade Speakeasy and Electric Toasters Toastmasters meeting. It's going to be a great fall evening. We've got a great topic, leaders and followers, and looking forward to seeing how the meeting is going to turn out tonight. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Rob. Rob, would you please kick us off with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would be happy to, Mr. President. If everyone will please mute themselves and focus on my voice and my screen and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Rob. Much appreciated. Tonight, our Toastmaster is Ron Slaybaugh.
What, that's it?
That's it. That's all I got.
Okay. I like our theme this evening, leaders and followers. I didn't take time to go research it like I've done with some of the other themes that Lloyd has come up with. I do want to share with you what it made me think of was that saying lead, follow, or get out of the way. I heard that I'm 50 years old now, and I can remember hearing that when I was a kid, so I don't know exactly how old that saying is. Then it made me think of this movie that my wife and I watched here not too long ago. It's called Idiocracy. I'm curious how many folks have seen that. Boy, it doesn't surprise me that the Toastmasters group wouldn't be one that would watch Idiocracy. I pulled it up here on Wikipedia. It's a science fiction comedy out of '06, and it's American soldier takes part in a hibernation experiment where he's accidentally frozen for 500 years. He wakes up in this dystopian world where commercialism has run rampant, mankind has embraced anti-intellectualism, society is devoid of such traits as intellectual curiosity, social responsibility, justice, and human rights. It is indeed a comedy, but I don't know, it seems like there could be a little bit of truth to it. It depends on your point of view. But why does the theme make me think of this movie? Because in the beginning, when the soldier was being selected for this thing, he didn't understand why he was selected. Because they told him that he was handpicked for this hibernation experiment. And he says, "You told me to lead, follow, or get out of the way, and I got out of the way." And he said it with such conviction, like that was just the right thing to do. Perhaps it was the funniest part of the movie, I'm not sure, but I certainly liked it. Let's go ahead and get going. Looks like we have a pretty full, a reasonably full agenda. We don't have two speakers, but we certainly do have one. I'd like to turn it over to our General Evaluator, Dean.
Thank you. My role is to run the evaluation portion of the meeting. And at this point, I will introduce the members of the evaluation team. The first member is Mary Syrie, who will be evaluating Lloyd Smith's speech. Mary, if you could tell us about Lloyd's speech and what you'll be evaluating.
I'd be glad to, Dean. Thank you for the introduction. Tonight, Lloyd is delivering a speech from the Team Collaboration Path. Lloyd is on level 3, and this project is using descriptive language. I will listen for the usage of literal versus figurative language, his effective use of adjectives and adverbs to create vivid descriptions, and also literary elements such as plot, setting, actors' dialogue, and conflict. This is a 5 to 7 minute speech, and I will deliver my opinion on his speech during the evaluation portion of our meeting today.
Thank you, Mary. The next member of the evaluation team that I want to introduce is Joyce Matheson, who was our timer tonight.
Hello, everyone. I am very excited. As you know, I love this role so much. I have no idea why, I just do. Maybe it's because I have the power. Let's start with Lloyd's speech. It's going to be 5 to 7 minutes in length. At 5, I will raise the green. At 6, I will go mellow yellow. And as an added bonus, at 7 minutes, F for finished. You are finished. It's the F bomb for finished. That's all it means here. As for the individual evaluations, that would be Mary doing the evaluation at 2 minutes, green. At 2 and 30 seconds, yellow. At 3, finished. Table topics, 1 minute, we go green. 1.5, yellow. At 2, finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joyce. By the way, I really like your toilet paper rolls. I get a laugh out of that every time I see them. The next member of the evaluation team is Pat Whitfield, who is our grammarian, and she will introduce the word of the day and tell us about her role. Pat.
Yes, and I'll begin with the word of the day because our theme is leadership and leaders and followers. The word of the day is primacy. And primacy means, oh, so sorry. I hope you can see it now. Primacy. Okay. And what primacy means, it is the state of being first in importance or a rank or order. And the leader is usually first in order, not necessarily in rank. If it's a true leader is very collaborative. But what I'm going to be looking for as grammarian is the primacy of the finest use of the English language this evening. I'll be looking for primacy in each and every presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. And the final member of the evaluation team is Steve Schwind, who will be the counter tonight.
Thank you. We all like to speak well and clearly. Oftentimes we stumble with filler words, and my role is to monitor everyone's speaking role and watch for filler words like and, well, so. And I will mark them all down as I catch them and report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. At this point, I'll return the control of the meeting back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. Now I'd like to introduce Lloyd for his speech. He provided me a sheet that I could read to make it really easy for me. And Lloyd, thanks for making the font so big. I think you've heard me complain about my eyes not being all that great like they once were. Let's get to it. Revise means revision, seeing again. It's a critical part of the writing process because second thoughts are very often better than first thoughts, especially after an audience has offered comments and suggestions. This evening, for the Using Descriptive Language project, which is the final level 3 elective in his team collaboration path, Lloyd Smith will present a revised version of his last humorous speech contest entry from 2016. Just after the Area A1 contest, he had to drop out of the competition cycle due to his wife's declining health. This revised version of the speech is about 60% different from the original. Lloyd Smith and the Creatures from the Lagoon.
Every Saturday afternoon when I was a kid in the 1950s, if I could scrounge up 75 cents, I was at the Dishman Theater in the Spokane Valley for a double feature of Japanese monster movies. You know, the kind with a guy in a lizard suit stomping on little model houses and toy cars while cartoon flames came out of his mouth. Rodan, Mothra, and of course, the godfather of all movie monsters, Godzilla. For all of us 10-year-old cinema aficionados, it was high art. But Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, little did we know that while we were watching movie monsters stomp a fake Tokyo, real creatures from the lagoon were attacking an unsuspecting city in mid-America. The marshlands on the shore of Lake Michigan, about 25 miles north of Green Bay, Wisconsin, has always been the lair of lithobates in the spring. But the spring of 1952 was different and frightening and evil. Lithobates. The monster's name is almost enough to make you cower in fear of the cartoon flames, isn't it? Well, maybe not. Lithobates papayensis is the northern leopard frog. If you ever dissected a frog in a biology class, it was probably a leopard frog. They're about 4 or 5 inches long, and the black spots on their green skins look kind of like spots on leopards. They're harmless little guys, maybe even cute, depending on your attitude toward interspecies dating. But they weren't cute near Green Bay that summer. In a normal spring, as the weather warmed, the marshes would dry out, and only about 1% of the frog eggs that were laid would hatch into tadpoles and reach adult froghood. But 1952 wasn't normal. Unusual winds kept pushing the lake water into the marshes, and the conditions were fantastic for leopard frog romance. About 1,000 times the normal number of frog eggs hatched and matured, and when they did, they were hungry. After eating every grasshopper, housefly, cricket, mosquito, snail, and spider in the marshes, they began hopping toward the quiet little logging town of Oconto, Wisconsin. All 175 million of them. 175 million frogs. That was 35,000 of them for each one of the 5,000 men, women, and children in Oconto. The most common amphibian in the area had suddenly become way too common. Within a few days, frogs filled the streets, the sidewalks, the yards, the parking lots, every flat spot in town covered with frogs. Frogs piled up in front of doors and windows of houses and businesses like slimy green snowdrifts. People first tried to sweep them away with brooms, then they tried to scoop them up in snow shovels, but there were always more frogs. And anyway, where do you put something that's already everywhere? Their endless croaking and thrumming was so loud it drowned out normal conversations inside of houses. The town's dogs barked themselves into nervous breakdowns, although the cats quickly got bored, curled up, and fell asleep. There was constant loud rustling all over town and disturbingly loud pops as frogs exploded under car tires. The people who tried to mow their lawns unwittingly invented the frog Cuisinart. There was the regular crunching of minor fender benders as motorists skidded on the frogs at intersections and lost control of their cars. Fortunately, the only human casualty was a retired logger named Nelson Conrad. After hearing noises in his yard one night near the beginning of the invasion, he pointed a flashlight out of the window. He was so terrified by what he called millions of beady little eyes looking back that he ran out his back door, slipped on the frogs on his steps, and broke his arm. The real impact on everyone, though, was psychological. Everyone wondered if they were seeing an invasion to rival the biblical plague that helped persuade the Egyptians to free the Israelites. There was nothing to think about or talk about but frogs. Then, as suddenly as the invasion began, it ended. Gradually, over the course of several weeks, the frogs retreated and peace returned to Oconto. However, in the outlying ponds and marshes, the frogs still ruled, and the humans stayed away, worried about what might happen the next year in 1953. Today, there are just a few old timers left in Oconto who remember the Great Frog Invasion of 1952, and they don't like to talk about it. The only memorial is the street sign on Frog Pond Road. But out there in the marshland, the leopard frogs are peering out of the darkness with beady little eyes, softly croaking to one another, biding their time, ready to once again go on the march, or probably on the hop. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lloyd. I wasn't sure that I had heard that one before, but I believe that I have. Great job. Joyce, could we have 1 minute, please? And folks, could you use the chat feature to provide Lloyd some comments?
Absolutely, starting right now. That's 1 minute.
Okay, folks, if you could wrap those up. Rob reminded us that he had a joke. So before we get started with table topics, since we do have a little bit of extra time, I'd certainly like to hear Rob's joke. Take it away, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. A doctor and a lawyer are talking at a party. Their conversation is constantly interrupted by people describing their ailments and asking the doctor for free medical advice. After an hour of this, the exasperated doctor asks the lawyer, "What do you do to stop people from asking you for legal advice when you're out of the office?" "I give it to them," replies the lawyer, "and then I send them a bill." The doctor is shocked, but agrees to give it a try. The next day, still feeling slightly guilty, the doctor prepares the bills. When he goes to place them in his mailbox, he finds a bill from the lawyer.
Okay, Rob, I really like that one. Thank you. I'm going to move on to table topics, the impromptu speaking part of our Toastmasters agenda. And this is actually why I joined Toastmasters way back when. I don't remember what year it was anymore, but I wanted to get involved and get more experience with table topics. And even today, I found that pretty handy. I had to present at our board meeting on 2 different topics, and I had it all planned out that I would get everything in place over my lunch hour, and I'd be all prepared to go after 1 o'clock. Then I got that text at about 11 o'clock, said, "Hey, you're up in 10 minutes." And I had to rush home and get logged into, we use Skype, and I didn't have my notes available, so I just went off memory. But, with all this practice that we get in these weekly meetings, it went just fine. And then due to my own, one other, impromptu thing for me is being Toastmaster tonight. And I don't have anybody to blame for that. That was just my own laziness, not looking at the agenda until about 5:15. But I think it's working out just fine. So Jackie, you're up. Looks like you are going to be the table topics master for our theme, leaders and followers. Take it away, please.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I was going to give Rob a chance to tell his joke, but you got to him before I did. So thank you for giving him primacy in the meeting. Followers and leaders, leaders and followers. It's reminded me of the fact that we can't always be good leaders, and sometimes we're called on to be good followers. Do you consider yourself naturally more of a follower or a leader? And how has your Toastmaster journey shaped you? Christina.
Thank you, Jackie. I consider myself more of a leader. I have been leading things since I was about 5, when my sister, who was 2 years older than I, and in Bluebirds, was supposed to be selling her candy door to door, but she was very shy. So she handed me the box and said, "Here, just go up and ring the bell." I said, "Sure, why not?" So I did, and thus a leader was born. Having led through owning businesses, managing employees, heading up Bible studies. Right now, I'm the chair of Columbia Valley Community Health Board of Directors. I seem to always end up in positions of leadership. That said, I'm very happy to be a follower when the opportunity presents itself. It's quite refreshing to take the weight off the shoulders, set it aside, and set primacy aside as well. Instead, enjoy being a follower. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Christina. Very well said. This question is going to be for someone who's very into history. That might give you a heads up, but I'm not going to tell you who you are yet. But I would like to know, who is someone that stands out in your mind as a great leader from the past and why? Ian.
I knew that was coming my way. I was trying to think quickly who a leader was that has done a great job and why. I've yet to come up with one. Not really coming up with one off the top of my head. So I'm going to just swing this one into the question that you asked Christina. And because I was thinking about, had you asked me that question, what my answer would have been. And my answer would have been that I'm not the type of person that naturally wants to just be the leader. I don't want to grab the reins and go, nor am I a follower. What I like to do is be in charge of myself and my own destiny. And I like it when things are getting done. I like to be a part of a team, but if the team is not getting the work done, that's when I like to step in and just do it. And that's not necessarily a sign of a great leader. A great leader should be delegating and managing these various roles that people can do to collectively get a job done. And I tend to just pick up the slack and do it. So I like to think of myself as a leader of me. So I'm not really in either the leader category or the follower category, somewhere in between. And it works for me. Thanks.
Very well said, Ian. Thank you for fielding that in the way that works for you. Having said that, I'm now going to field your previous question to somebody else. Who is someone that stands out in your mind as a great leader from the past and why? Eric.
Dr. Master, I have kind of an unusual answer. Somebody I think that's kind of interesting is Ronald Reagan. Saw a documentary on him, and I don't like politicians running the country. I'd rather have a business leader, or in this case, a non-politician like Ronald Reagan, who was an actor. And I always thought that he was very good at walking down the aisle and getting both sides together. And he has a very self-effacing demeanor and could crack a joke one after the other. I appreciated that because it disarmed the situation. And a lot of political situations are very tense and ego-driven and ego-filled. I thought that he was good for that time. He, even in the debates, when Walter Mondale was running against him, he said, "Well, I'm not gonna make age an issue because he's so young," or whatever he said. And then he gets shot, and he's in the operating room. The doctors are standing over him, and they're asking him how he's doing. He says, "I'm fine, unless you're a Democrat." I just like the way that he negotiated the political scene that was non-political, but got things done. He got a lot of stuff done. I'm running out of things because I want to see the F-bomb, but I'm just not quite there yet. Hopefully she'll show me anyway. Thank you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Eric. You brought some wonderful levity to us. And I'm going to throw a rather silly question in here because I think it's fun and I believe in the primacy of humor. Do you consider the fly on Mike Pence's head to be more of a leader or a follower? Rob.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, for that wonderful question. Actually, I never did see the fly on the vice president's head, because I was focused on the words that he was sharing with everyone in the country. I don't know why people felt it was so important to identify this fly and make such an issue out of it. Vice President Pence, it didn't bother him. He is obviously a leader of our country. So I guess if there's a fly in his hair, or a banana in his pocket, or a mouse running up his trousers, these are all things that have followed him. So I guess they would be followers, but of no consequence whatsoever. I thought he did a fabulous job, and he is still my leader, in my opinion. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. I do have to say, as an add-on for that, when I was having fun with accents in my speaker group, I took the opportunity to personify that fly. And it was quite funny to be in that fly's little head as he zoomed around security to get his moment in the sun. And he was looking around and he's like, oh, Kamala's hair? Nah, that won't stand out. Oh, plexiglass. And white hair, I stand out. Hi, Mom, I'm on TV. Anyways, that's more where I was coming from with the fly's narrative. So in my mind, that fly was quite the little leader, because he was going to be on TV no matter what. I personally don't think he was Republican or Democrat. I just think that he was taking his 2 minutes in the sun. So taking it back to something a little more serious, what are some examples of times when you have had to be a good leader and a good follower? Vicki.
Hit the wrong button. Don't you love Zoom? Okay. Could you repeat the question? Because I totally lost it.
Yes. What are some examples of times when you have had to be a good leader and a good follower?
Oh, that is a great question, because I would consider myself more of a person who just sits back and observes, kind of assesses the situation, see what's going on, kind of like how Ian described himself as being a leader of himself. I like to see what is happening, if any mistakes I feel may be in play, and how I can avoid those mistakes, because I am one who has this need to have perfection, and there is no way to be perfect. However, I seem to always want to strive for that, and that might be a leadership quality of perfection. However, I also think that it can be a detriment, because perfection also paralyzes me. However, I just make sure that I watch what's going on, and then when I need to, I will step in and help further things. So I don't think that I follow, and I'm not one who really likes to take the reins and lead, but I'm one who will jump in and be of service. Madam Table Topics Master.
Very well put, Vicki. Thank you. I think we're doing great on time. Do we have 15 more minutes? Is that? Hey, okay. All right. The next question is, what are the most important qualities you look for in a good leader? Steve.
Thank you. I believe that the qualities of a good leader begin with humility. I have a group that I ride bikes with, and one of the people who rides there and is occasionally our ride leader is wonderfully adaptive. She engages with the group as one of them. And when we are at a place where we're going to take a left or a right, she will make the determination and nobody questions her. She's assertive and she's concrete, and you are never left wondering. She does an amazing job at collaborating, I guess really is a good way of saying it. It's how a lot of people view a good leader to act and engage with the people who are being led. There are times, and this is a speech I actually am just consternating over getting written to present, is leadership styles. There are authoritarian leaders who at one point in time are going to be the right call. It would not be a good leader for me, however. I tend to chafe at the bit when you stand on my toes. To encourage people to engage and perform activities or go in a direction to accomplish a task is a bit of a tightrope walk. There's times when they need to be engaged and considered as to their thoughts in what the outcome will look like to encourage them to want to participate. And then there's other times when they really just need to be told, this is what we're going to do, we're going to get it done. That's what I got for you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'm looking forward to that speech. And we were all looking forward to seeing the F-bomb. And because you were formulating the beginnings of a speech, we got to see the F-bomb from Joyce, which was so much fun. Thank you for that, Steve. We
I will
appreciate it.
always be willing to drop the F-bomb just for you.
I feel privileged.
Throughout history, there have been so many leaders with different leadership styles. Which leader would you most be excited to follow from history? And this could be Queen Elizabeth I's court or one of Jesus's disciples. Anything that you can think of from history. Who would you love to follow? Pat.
I think without fail, the leader I would love to follow would be Nelson Mandela. Here is a man who had so much cruelty imposed upon him, so many demeaning experiences, and yet, after all the years that he spent in prison, when he got out, he provided leadership to bring South Africa together in a unified kind of way. To me, that is a real gift. The ability to interact with an opponent who is radically different from you, maybe cruel, maybe insulting. I can't think of enough pejorative adjectives, but to be able to engage that person in a way for the mutual benefit of those whom you are leading. So for me, no question, Nelson Mandela gets the prize. He's the primacy among leaders.
That was beautifully said, Pat. Thank you. Who is somebody that you remember being an amazing leader during your childhood? Dean.
That's a hard one because I'm struggling to remember my childhood at this point. Probably one of my football coaches. He was actually my swimming coach also when I first got into high school. I had never done any swimming except just playing around in the pool, but he had a charisma and a magnetism about him. And I also had him for a math class. And at some point, his magnetism convinced me to join the swim team. And I almost threw up at my first practice because it was pretty hard. But for some reason, I'm a glutton for punishment. So I really enjoyed it and I stuck with it. But he really taught me a number of things. One of the things he really taught me was the value of hard work and how to control nervousness and how to have perspective on the sport so that you don't take it too seriously. So he was really an inspiration to me to continue being active and to continue staying in shape. It's something that changed my life because I've maintained a high level of activity to this day. So that would be my first choice, my primacy choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. It's a good reminder of just how much teachers are leaders. Not all teachers are leaders, but when you are in that position, you just have the chance to inspire so many people, as I'm sure Lloyd well knows. What is your favorite leader out of all your furry friends, Joyce?
Will someone please time me? Okay, thank you, Rob. My leader cat would be Daisy May. She tells me when to go to bed. She tells me when to wake up. She tells me when my lap is too empty. She tells me when it's time to stop petting, mostly with her back claws. I still have the scars. The second in command would be her sister, Sadie Ann. Between those two, all the rules belong to them. They have primacy in creating the rules. The laid back one of the group was Mr. Sampson. He would interject here and there, but mostly he was the absentee king that let the kingdom run by itself. Annabelle Louise, the fighter, is the renegade. While Lola, the dainty little maiden in distress that she is, needs all the help that she can get to have some semblance of a good life. I'm thinking about giving her some of my antidepressants. Most of the time, I just give her catnip. I have a leader, a princess, a rebel, and someone who needs to be rescued from the little hell house that I have given her. I suppose she needs someone to rescue her from the dragon. So I guess that makes me the dragon. Thank you very much.
Joyce, you always make me laugh, especially when you're talking about your little kitties. And I'm just waiting for the day when you come out with your children's books about your cats.
Look at
I
that.
think it would make a very fun series. Who is your favorite fictional leader? This could be film, this could be TV, this could be books, this could be on the stage. Who is your favorite fictional leader, Mary?
Favorite fictional leader. This is just the first one that came to the top of my head because I've been watching this silly movie too much lately. Clueless. And Clueless is based on the Jane Austen novel, Emma. I just get such a kick out of the character played by Alicia Silverstone. Her name is Cher, and she is the great leader in her little Southern California high school. I love her choice of words. I love that she is willing to include people who are not in her high clique, but she's willing to go beneath her to try to improve everyone around her. I love that despite the fact that she's wealthy and cute and has a ton of friends, she still has empathy for other people. Why is she a leader? I think because she's inclusive. I think because she listens to other people, and without really her realizing it, she's a very, very smart young woman. So, quick answer to that. Well, Cher from Clueless or Emma from Emma. Keep watching TVs.
I love that, Mary. I'm a huge Jane Austen fan, but I haven't seen Clueless in years. And I love those qualities that you picked out, especially the inclusivity. Very, very fun answer. Thank you. We have one more question. Taking it to the events of today, what would you say are the qualities of a leader that are needed in today's world, Lloyd?
That's an interesting one. I'm coming to believe that we've painted ourselves into a corner where regardless of who is elected or appointed the leader, he or she can't function anymore. And what I mean by that is that both of our two political parties and the political parties around the world in most of the democratic countries are polarized so much that they've perceived themselves as having the duty to prevent everybody from the other side from getting anything whatever done. And that becomes the higher good. In other words, for example, the confusion over the new Supreme Court justice. A lot of Democrats, I don't think, care all that much about whether or not Judge, what's her name, Bryant, gets nominated. What they care about is screwing over the Democrats. And the same is true on the other side. And that seems to come up over and over and over. You know, right now, the White House and the House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House, are in negotiations over another relief bill based on the COVID thing. But what both of them talk about is preventing the other side from getting anything at all. And I think we've somehow done that to ourselves, and not just here in the US, but we're starting to make it impossible for any leader to get anything done. That could have far-ranging consequences if you think about it, because sooner or later, the people who could be good leaders will catch on that they're just banging their heads on the wall. What's the point of that? Why try? You know, and so I can't answer your question because I'm not sure it's possible now in the current atmosphere to come up with an answer, and I'm not sure I see a way that can change. So now that I've cheered everybody up, back to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Lloyd. That is a very, very insightful answer. And all I can say is we need to be a little more like Cher from Clueless. With that, and thank you for all of your amazing answers, I am going to turn this meeting back over to our Toastmaster, Mr. Ron.
Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate it. A lot of good questions there, and I continue to be quite impressed, quite frankly, with how you conduct yourself at, what is it now, coming up on 2:30 in the morning. Good job. Good for you. Let's go ahead and move on to the evaluation phase of this evening's meeting. And of course, we'll bring on our general evaluator, Dean.
Thank you, Ron. The first part of our evaluation is Mary's evaluation of Lloyd's speech. Mary, you're up.
Hey, thank you. The creatures from the lagoon speech. Yes, I do remember this from a few years ago. This speech, Lloyd, was overloaded with adverbs and adjectives. And at first I thought, wow, is he overdoing it? But the subject is so unusual that I think it worked. I think it worked to have all the slime and the goo and the color and the emotion in this speech. It just helped the preposterous notion of a small town being overtaken by frogs to this degree. I want to talk about your introduction. You talked about being a 10-year-old cinema aficionado and going to the movies, seeing monster movies. And I thought, does this tie into the speech? Is he going to come back to this in the conclusion and, tie it all together? Was it distracting? And I was going to give you a criticism on that to say that it didn't really tie in, but I gave it some more thought. And I think that the intro was really good. I thought that the intro tied into the same time setting, and setting is important in this speech. It was the early 1950s. And I liked that you plucked monster movies that were popular at the time as another tie-in for this speech. And then you took us on a trip over to Wisconsin and the craziness that was going on there with the weather and frog breeding. And you didn't return to the intro and the conclusion, but it set the stage and the setting for the body of the speech. There were so many adjectives and adverbs and just funny stuff going on. I didn't get a chance to write it all down, but I loved it. I thought that was just great with the setting. Good job setting up the Wisconsin marshes, telling us about the frogs. Perhaps a little bit too much with the Latin name on the frog. If you need to cut something out, maybe that little section would be a good place to whack. There were 35,000 frogs per person. The frogs obviously held the position of primacy in this small Wisconsin town. Amazing. And the frog diet. I was laughing. I couldn't write down the long list of everything the frogs eat, but it was hilarious. I do have a suggestion though. You had two paces. You went fast and faster in this speech. So add some pauses for effect, slow down once in a while, give us more pacing, give us time to laugh. I bet there was a lot of laughter, and it's tricky when your audience is muted, but there was good, funny stuff going on there. So try to anticipate where we're gonna laugh, and pacing. There's one line, there was nothing to think about but frogs. I see the F-bomb. I'm confident that you handled literal and figurative language. I didn't write down any instances, but I know you, of all people, know that you don't use the word literally all over the place. And what I like best about this speech is I laughed. I laughed out loud. I burst out laughing. We needed that. Thank you very much for this speech.
Thank you, Mary. Next part of the evaluation is the timers report. Joyce.
There we are. My mouse did not want to cooperate for a moment. Let us start with the table topics. Christina, 1 minute, 20 seconds. Ian, 1 minute, 44 seconds. Eric, 1 minute, 42 seconds. Rob, 1 minute, 15 seconds. Vicky, 1 minute, 25 seconds. Steve, 2 minutes, 25 seconds. Pat, 1 minute, 10 seconds. Dean, 1 minute, 42 seconds. I clocked in at 1 minute, 42 seconds as well. Mary, 1 minute, 22 seconds. Lloyd, 1 minute, 57 seconds. As for the prepared speech, Lloyd, your speech time requirement was 5 to 7 minutes. Your actual time was 5 minutes, 22 seconds. Mary, for your evaluation, your time was between 2 and 3 minutes. You went for the actual time of 3 minutes and 39 seconds. All of it was very useful, though. I didn't mind one bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next part of the evaluation is the grammarian's report and use of the word of the day. Pat.
As it turns out, there were 3.5 uses of the word primacy. The people who used it fully were Christina, Joyce, and Mary. And I counted Dean because he talked about a primist experience. So he's the one who gets a half a credit since he modified the word. Then let's look at grammar. I usually pick on Ron for dropping the G off of ing words. I really only caught him once. He talked about 2:30 in the morning. But Eric was the mortal sinner. I wrote down getting instead of getting, standing over him, running against him, show me what was doing. And that kind of surprised me because usually he's very articulate, but he really had a lot of dropping the INGs today. Grammatically, Steve said, when ya stand on my toes instead of when you stand on my toes. Mary had two. One was keep watching, and the other was I was gonna laugh. So that's the picky stuff. In terms of the use of language, oh my goodness, Lloyd talked about interspecies dating, slimy green snowdrifts, frog Cuisinart, and I could go on, but they were such fun to listen to. Christina talked about taking the weight off the shoulders of others. Again, very illustrative kind of thing. Let me see. Joyce's descriptions of the personality, the leadership personalities of her cats. Leader, princess, rebel, one that needs some help. They were wonderful descriptions. You could surely see them. Overall, very interesting. Wonderful use of language, little sloppy pronunciation, but elegant evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. The final portion of the evaluation part of our meeting is the Counters report from Steve Schwind. Steve, please let us know if you misspoke.
Thank you. I won't be specific. The one thing I caught a lot of people doing was talking. And then their words would come out right after they were moving their lips. Never mind. As far as verbal faux pas, Lloyd, you got a little jag going on Oz, 3 of them, and right at the end. Mary, you had one so. You were just going right along, and I was cheering for you, and then you slipped that little bugger right in at the end. Ron, a couple of Oz. Joyce, you were doing very well, and right up to the end, cheering for you again. You slipped in an right at the end. Dean, you had an and a nah and a couple of so's. Pat, one so. Ian, a couple of ands and a couple of so's. Eric, and ah, right at the tail end. Everybody was, I guess, wearing down and losing their steam. That is my report.
Thank you, Steve. I'll say a few brief words about the meeting as a whole. As usual, it was a very excellent meeting again. We started on time. We had a good joke that we almost forgot, but you made good use of the chat to remind us. I really liked the table topics. They fit with the theme of the meeting. The questions were challenging, but generally not too difficult. I must say there was some of them I'm glad I didn't get asked. But nevertheless, they were good. And I liked the way that you had a brief commentary to transition from each topic to the next. That really kept us engaged. It was very entertaining. I really liked Mary's evaluation. You had some really positive comments as well as a few suggestions for improvement, and you had a very nice summary. The timer, you delivered your times very smoothly. Joyce, I love your grammarian report. It's great to keep reminding us to articulate our words. You're waving. Why are you waving?
You mean Pat?
I'm Pat.
Oh,
not
Pat,
Joyce.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Good catch. Anyway, I really appreciate your grammarian report, and it's great that you remind us to fully articulate our words. I and a lot of others find it all too easy to get lazy. So I appreciate it. You also highlighted some great phrases and words. Overall, it was another great meeting, and I'll return the meeting control back to the president.
Thanks, Dean. At this point, I would like to ask everyone to vote for their favorite speaker of the night, and it could be anybody. Please go ahead and send your favorite speaker vote to Rob. And Rob, would you please do us a favor and tabulate those? I'd like to thank all of our participants tonight. Everybody that spoke did a wonderful job. One of the things I really liked about tonight's meeting that I wanted to comment on was that, in fact, actually, I'm going to save this comment for just a moment when I get a chance to talk here at the end of the meeting. At this point, I want to turn this over to Lloyd to see if Lloyd has any comments from the club's educational officer. Lloyd, do you have any?
Well, on Saturday, Vicki and the other two members of the trio put on a really good substitute for the fall conference, is what it amounted to. Several of you were there. Mary was honored for her DTM that she earned in June, and Mary and I both were Triple Crown Award winners as well. It was really an interesting experience. Two good keynote type speakers, and so I really recommend all those things for the future if you take a shot. And I'm assuming the next conference is going to be, well, yeah, I already know it is going to be virtual come April. Back to you, Ian.
Thanks, Lloyd. Rob, do we happen to have a winner?
We have a clear winner, Mr. President. Because of his speech on amphibians, our winner this evening is Lloyd Smith. Congratulations, Lloyd.
I should mention that actually happened, all of it. It's just a current event that I converted into a narrative is what it amounts to. Right down to the guy breaking his arm. The whole thing happened.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks again, Lloyd, for your commentary on the event this last weekend. I had to miss it, unfortunately. I had another engagement out of town. I did hear that there is a opportunity to watch a replay of that, so I'll go ahead and do that. My comment, getting kind of right to the point here because we're at 6:30 to 6:31 now, is that one of the things I really appreciate about this club is occasionally somebody will bring something political up. There's a couple instances tonight talking about politics, but nobody gets really political the way the media does. And I want to thank you all for doing that. This is just not the forum for that. This is a great opportunity to talk about all kinds of different things, but it's so easy to get really sideways and step on people's toes or just take things the wrong way or perceive things the wrong way when you start talking about politics and your opinions on such. So I just want to thank everybody again for keeping this clean forum. It's a tough time of year with regard to politics. Everybody's got their opinions, and it's all of our duties to voice those opinions, but doing it through the proper means. Hopefully we've all got a little paper envelope in the mail right now that we can use to voice those opinions. And I encourage you all to do it. And again, thanks for not doing it here. At this point, I did want to say that Mary, myself, and Lloyd are going to go ahead and continue on with this meeting tonight to talk about a project that Mary's going to be doing. And it's a part of her ongoing Toastmasters education. I'm sure you all will be hearing more about the results of that here in the future. So I'd like to thank you all and see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody.